Performance management is an idea that is both very new and very, very old. For as long as there have been employees, there's been some kind of employee oversight process. But how did today's ideas about performance management come to be? Well, let's go back in time to take a look. Some historians trace the beginnings of modern performance appraisals all the way back to China in the 3rd century, when the imperial rater had the job of evaluating the performance of ruling family members. He was not popular. In the late 19th century, Scottish cotton mill owner Robert Owen is said to have created a system to assign a degree of merit to workers based on their productivity. But it wasn't until the 20th century that things really got going. By the mid-1950s, companies were using a performance appraisal process that was largely based on the personality of the employee. There was no room for self-appraisal, no transparency, and many of the things employees were evaluated on were not things they could change or develop. Not surprisingly, this process was not well liked. Things evolved in the 1960s, when MBOs, or management by objectives, took over. MBOs brought employees into the process through self-appraisal and collective goal setting. Through transparency and the focus on measurable objectives, they created space for performance to actually be measured. The glory days didn't last too long, though. The 1970s brought widespread criticism and even lawsuits against companies, alleging that performance reviews were too subjective, often leaving careers in the hands of managers whose personal opinions could overshadow what was best for the company. And then the 1980s happened. Enter annual performance reviews and GE CEO Jack Welch's infamous rank and yank system, officially called stack ranking. In this system, employees are evaluated yearly, often with a check-the-box questionnaire. Managers then assign 20% of their employees the top ranking of 1, the middle 70% a value of 2, and the bottom 10% the lowly value of 3. While it does incorporate goal setting, evaluation, and some self-appraisals, stack ranking's somewhat arbitrary value assignments have been criticized for creating cutthroat cultures and rampant favoritism. Recent research has also shown that stack ranking simply doesn't make sense because talent development doesn't happen on a bell curve. And yet, some 60% of Fortune 500 companies still use this practice. In the last 2 decades, performance management has come of age. Increasingly, companies are recognizing the need to use reviews as a way to actually drive performance rather than simply evaluate it. Feedback is happening more often, quarterly, monthly, or even weekly, and is less time-consuming for managers thanks to technological innovations. 360-degree feedback, which includes self-appraisals as well as feedback from peers and managers, is increasingly common. Whole teams are being evaluated together rather than as individuals. And the innovations keep coming, it seems, almost every day.